Gonna walk over a basic CT default on the map of Nuke, so make sure to pay attention as this is one of the hardest maps to master whenever you play Counter-Strike. Let's dive into it. Alright, once you're on the map of Nuke, you need to know that there's different roles and different positions that you need to have covered every single round. So starting off with, I'll show you where you need to go and what kind of areas you need to control when you're playing the CT side of Nuke. The first player, the ramp player, always get out of CT spawn and he's heading towards ramp. It is arguably one of the most important positions on the entire map, as if you have a bad ramp player, you are most likely going to lose your game. His job is to hold this area, but we'll get back into it because it's not always about fighting and getting kills. It's more so about just controlling the ramp area, because one of the few things and one of the key things he can do when he's playing ramp is whenever he feels like he's being swarmed or they're rushing ramp or something like that, 9 out of 10 times it's more important for the ramp player to stay alive, which means dropping down, go down right here and control this area, than it is for him to fight and get a kill and then die. I would argue that if you only get one kill, if you get traded 1-for-1 on ramp, you haven't done your job properly. You need this player to stay alive so you can control the lower bomb site, otherwise it will make the rest of the defense fall apart. So if you're a ramp player, you need to play smart, you need to have a brain, and you don't necessarily need to be the type of player who always wants to fight. So have that in mind when you're choosing your position on Nuke. That's the ramp player. The second player coming out of CT spawn will be the rotation player. He's a rotator, playing in heaven, playing under heaven towards ramp, or playing outside. He can basically choose from the beginning of the round wherever he wants to go. Usually it's a good idea to help the ramp player by coming ramp, throwing this smoke for him, and then leave him. That buys the ramp player 25 seconds where your smoke is gonna cover ramp and he can play for himself. From that point onwards, he can go up heaven, help the inside guys. Let's say the opponents decide to rush inside. All of a sudden you have 3 guys to deal with that. He can also decide to go out here, play on the stairway and help yard in case they're rushing yard, or in case he needs to flash for a yard player, anything like that. And even if he wants to, he can also decide from the beginning of the round to go out and play in yard together with his yard player, where he's playing up and aggressive or playing close towards main or whatever he may do. This player type is a guy that likes to be on the move all the time. You need to read the game, you need to understand where do you think the opponents are going to hit next, and then you need to position yourself accordingly to where you think the next hit is going to be. So it's one of those roles that I personally find incredible fun to play, but it's also very demanding. You need to have a smart mind for the game, otherwise it's not a role for you. Player number 3 and player number 4 coming out of CT spawn will be the 2 inside players. One is holding hot and one is holding main. Now player number 3, main focus, get up here every round, put a Molotov in front of the hot just to make sure that if they rush out of hot, you at least make it more difficult for them. Now if you can't afford a Molotov, a smoke also works. Significantly harder for the opponents to get out here. So always do some sort of pre-nade, pre-smoke, pre-flash, pre-Molotov to make sure that if they rush inside, it's harder for the T players. You can again come up heaven, you can decide to drop down on floor straight away and play from floor positions behind the side, hold all these different angles where you're holding hot, or you can decide as well to just stay up here in heaven and use your height advantage by playing this position or by going above hot where you look down towards it, or even if you want to, after you drop down on floor and you're holding this angle for a little while, well, no one is telling you that you can't jump on top of hot like this and play this position. So there's many different variations, but your main goal, your main focus should be to hold this area. Simple as that. Player number 4 coming out of CT spawn is the main player / door player, which is also a rotation position. Usually you come in main fast and you have to be aware they can come outdoors, so you want to pre-Molotov, or even better, I would argue for the door position, you want to pre-smoke like this. Always make sure that if they do decide to rush out the door from the beginning of the round, you make the work conditions as hard as absolutely possible for your opponents. You then come in and you can play behind the vents, you can play even from this position right here where you're close to the boxes. You can also be even more aggressive if you want to and play close the door. Up to you. Many different variations. One thing you need to keep in mind though is that you want to be close towards this vent, as you are a rotation player. You may be needed elsewhere in the round at some point, so the closer you are to the vent, the more mobile you are, the more flexible you are, and the more you can help your ramp player or your yard player if needed be. We'll get back to that. The 5th player is the yard player, and that would usually be the AWP player. Alright, you want an AWP to play yard. What he can do from the beginning of the round is pre-Molotov yard like this. Again, if they do decide to rush yard, there's already a Molotov, so you're forcing them to use a smoke or you're forcing them to wait a little bit. You can also, if you want to, just do a pre-flash or do nothing. It's up to you. Again, many different positions you can take. This one is a good angle to hold with an AWP, but you have to be aware that they can be over here to the right, so you can also hold this if you want to. The thing is, when you're holding right here, you're exposed towards silo. So in terms of playing yard, you have to make up your mind. Do you want to hold silo? Is this a team that uses silo a lot? Or do you want to hold yard and then bank on no one coming silo? Or you want to do a bit of both where you're spotting like this and you're spotting like this? Again, there's a lot of individual decisions you have to make when you're playing Yard with the AWP as well. Trust me, it's not easy, and I will also add to it, it is a position you can play with the rifle as well. Imagine you do the pre-flash from the beginning of the round, come like this, you push behind CT red. Most of the time, you would feel more comfortable having an M4 than standing here with an AWP. So you can play both positions, both with the AWP and with the rifle as well. So let's pretend you're the fourth player coming in main right here. You're putting down a smoke in front of the door, no one is rushing out, you're playing close to events, nothing happens. Now, your position is the rotation player, right? Between the upper bomb site and the lower bomb site. So in a scenario where the Yard player is telling you, I'm smoked off, I can't see, maybe they're down secret, you would like to rotate down towards this vent. So everyone is pushing themselves one step, which means that you're going down the vents, and now your job is to hold the lower bomb site right here, which can be done from the vents, it can be done from this position down here, it can be done from the stairs. Basically, your job is to make sure that no one is coming down here without you knowing. It causes a chain of reaction though, because while you're dropping down the vents, all of a sudden the door is no longer hold. So that means the hot player will then have to hold door. That means the rotation player in heaven will then have to hold hot, and that means the ramp player stays ramp. So everyone is moving one position when the Yard player is saying no longer have Yard under control. Opposite happens if you're the ramp player. Let's say that you're the ramp player right here. You're saying, okay, ramp, I can't hold it, I'm dropping lower. All of a sudden, you are the one holding the lower bomb site. And now the heaven player's job is to make sure they're not coming below heaven. You want to make sure that under heaven is under lockdown. The hot player stays hot. The door player perhaps stays door. If the ramp player is yelling that there are 5 guys ramp, they're rushing lower, he makes the rotation once again, and then the hot player goes door, etc, etc, etc. So what you have to understand is that depending on whether they come Yard or ramp, everyone is moving one position, and it's a chain reaction. So there's a lot of communication and there's a lot of team play involved when you play the map of Nuke. It is by far the hardest map to play the CT side on against good teams who manipulate with the rotations. And I will give you one advice: understand the concept of rotations and understand the concept of communication, because you cannot make the right rotation unless you get the info from a teammate. That's it for the basic CT default on Nuke. Make sure to check out the customized training set so you can know the